to the RunRX podcast, where we talk about all things running. As many runners know, it's 90% mental. So join Coach Valerie and Coach Caroline as we go through the mental side of running. Welcome back to the RunRX podcast. I'm your host, Coach Caroline, and I'm here with Coach Valerie. Coach, I started running, 10 years ago? And I met you we're coming up on 5 years, guys. 5-year anniversary. Valerie and I have been working together, business partners. But so long before I met you, I had gone to a shoe store and I got on a treadmill and I ran, and they had this fantastic video setup, and they showed me the heat maps of my feet and they showed me the side, the cameras everywhere. So they were showing me you're supinating or you're pronating and see how you're landing. They had all this stuff that they gave me. And of course, then they sold me shoes, and they didn't hide that from me. They said, look, we're going to figure out the right shoe for you by analyzing your run, was what they were actually selling. But it was very high tech, very cool, made you feel like this shoe was almost made for me. But what do you think of these running analysis when people do them? Can you give me some input on that? Because it's been a lot of years, and I don't think I would do that again after meeting you.
Well, here's my challenge. So for one, do you do most of your running on a treadmill? And here's the challenge is that the running on a treadmill is not the exact same as running outside. So that's important. And that being said, what are we looking for in the runner? And we recently had a runner get a running analysis on a treadmill, and same thing. It was very fancy, lots of pictures, lots of data, so much data.
Oh, there was so much data.
And there was no correction, guys. And this is what I was really talking about was, so then she was told, here's the things you do. And they were like, your hips do this, you land here, because everybody's obsessed with landing. Here's what your arms were doing. So they're showing her it's kind of like you're saying, here's all the movements that you're doing. And then here, what you, instead of saying here's how to correct what you're doing, it was just telling her all these things, and that she needs to work on her hips, told her that she had tight hips. So all of a sudden you start thinking, oh, I have to work on my hips. I have tight hips. And then he was like, your cadence isn't quite right. And she said, oh, it's not normally like this. I'm just nervous because of this. All these cameras are on,
Yeah.
on the treadmill.
You're not watching me when I naturally run.
Yeah. And it's funny because I had actually a different experience. When the very first time I had somebody watch me run, they had me put the shoes on and we went outside and I ran up and down the parking lot. And same thing. I felt like a rock star. Oh my gosh, somebody's watching me run. This is hysterical.
Yeah.
But I wanted the same thing. I had a hamstring issue, and the guy was like, "Oh, it's got to be your shoes." And it's funny when you hear that now, you're like, "Of course it's not your shoes. It's you. What are you doing in those shoes?" But in that moment, I was just the same. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy knows everything. He's going to watch me run." And the same thing here, you pronate, here's some shoes. Well, I bought the shoes, went running, same exact pain. So I was like, yeah, not the shoe, it's me. And so that's my problem with the gait analysis is, one, no one's using the same standard. They're all using the same standard of errors. Here, look, we see pronation. Here, look, we see this. However, they're not looking at any standard. And, for us, we teach pose method. So then we can show the runner, here you are in the running pose, figure 4, that every single runner runs through. And then when we see you in your pose, we can show you, oh, look, you were here in your pose and your knee was not bent, it's straight. That's why your hip hurts, because your knee is straight. Let's just bend the knee. So I give you here's the issue. Here's how we correct it. Let's put you in the correct pose. Let's practice. What is the pose? Here's where you need to be on the ground, right here. And a lot of people aren't right there. They're either ahead, they're behind, their foot's ahead, their foot's behind. So they keep showing everybody those things. They're like, look, your body's way over here. Your head is forward. Your heel is landing. You see all these byproducts. And we're like, who cares about that? Let's show them, where are you here when you're supposed to be in pose? And if you're not there, let's put you there. See, then I've got a plan of action. And then if your
Right.
knee is locking out in the back or locking out in the front, both of those are going to add up to 3 times your body weight. We don't want to add 3 times our body weight. Let's reduce your body weight by 50% by bending the knee. So then we're teaching you, here's what you're going to do. Here's the running action of pulling. No one talks about pulling. They talk about how your foot lands. Who cares how your foot lands? You want to care about the action that you're supposed to be doing, and that's pulling your foot up, because pulling the foot up corrects any of those landing errors. So all of a sudden you're giving the runner control. You work on these 3 elements and you'll be able to correct your run. And this was really fun because Caroline and I spent a lot of time with our runners, helping them understand you are not your pain.
Yeah.
You are not a tight hip. You are not a tight hamstring. You have one, but it's not limiting you. Don't be limited, right? Be like Kipchoge. No human is limited.
Right.
So we were kind of giggling because, and not in a bad way, but we have a runner we've been working with quite a bit who really thought she just identified as a tight hip. And we've been working on releasing tension, both in her mind, by the way, and in her movement. And so she said to me, she's like, gosh, now that my hip's loose, now I can really run. And I'm like, no.
You always tried.
Right. But you see how strong it is that as soon as the person doing the analysis says to you, you pronate, you have a tight hip, it's almost like they're giving you, it's okay that you hurt.
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. And the thing that has gotten me from getting to know you, that's made the whole shoe store pronate, where are you landing sort of thing that makes it so important, is when you're in alignment and your body, gravity takes your body down, guys. We all have it, right? Your foot, it gets placed on the ground, and I'm saying it's placed by gravity, not by you placing it. You don't want to keep it there. So it doesn't matter that it pronated. It doesn't matter that you touched with your ball of foot first and then went to your heel, or your heel first and then went to it matters how your entire body acts as a unit, which is something you taught me, and then comes back and then comes off the ground. You don't want to be on the ground. So your shoes matter as protection, but getting that super comfy stability shoe is just going to allow you to stay on the ground longer, which is what is causing your injury.
Right.
And it's that's when I figured that out, I was just like, I want to shake people and go, no, you want to try to stay off the ground. If you could have one of those little rolling things, like we do aqua aerobics, right? Like if you could almost aqua aerobics, but on land, where you weren't really actually even touching the bottom of the pool, it would just, I don't know. I just think it would be fascinating. And I don't think people realize how important the pose is, how important that alignment is to everything. It keeps everything in line. And that's what we teach.
Well, you recognize it when something's off.
Yes.
That's the challenge, is that we don't really listen to our body till something's hurting. And then when you go to the PT, you go to the chiro, you start to learn these things, right? And so then you recognize the importance of it. However, we still treat the area. I still have people coming in that are like, well, it's my hamstring. Well, it's my hip. I'm like, well, it's actually the entire body. That's just where you're feeling it. And so it's the same thing. It's like, I can say till I'm blue in the face, you only need to pull your foot. You only need to pull your foot. And people will still ask me, where should I land? What should I feel when I land? You see what I mean? Because they're still stuck on it. And I laugh because you said aqua jogging. So I took a group of ladies aqua jogging a couple weeks ago, and one of them said, is it okay that my heel's not touching? And I said, yeah, because you're in the water. So gravity, the water's, you're feeling gravity less, the water's lifting your foot. You're not holding that tension. And I said, isn't that cool? That's exactly the same on land. If you actually had no tension in the foot, who knows where it would land? You're always going to feel the pressure on the ball of your foot. But once you let go of where it is and you only pull from sensation, life changes.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest challenge. Again, just going back on topic to the gait analysis, is that as many as I've done, And as many as I've seen, all the excitement of the colors and the 3D and the imaging, and I'm like, nowhere do they help these people to show them, guys, listen, it's really the simplicity of how many frames are you on the ground. And
Right.
for all of our runners, no matter their running speed, no matter their running distance, if you get to pose by the second frame and you pull by the second frame, you're going to use muscle elasticity. You're going to reduce impact. You're going to use gravity in a positive way. And most of our runners are coming in at like 8 to 10 frames on the ground. And again, that's where your injuries are coming from. So it's like, let us help you get off the ground. Let us help you figure out how to hold yourself up. And you can let go of all those other thoughts. You're not
Absolutely.
a tight hip. Even if you have.
And again, if you want to go get a fun gait analysis and get all that stats, it's just like the stats on your watch. The stats are great. It's information, but don't let it take you away from what is running, and that is the running pose and how to get to pose. And that it truly is the science, guys. And the science that they're giving you is just a lot of other stuff that really isn't going to take away your pain. It's really not going to fix it. Great information.
I'll say this at the end, because I do want to say that those of you that are experiencing pain, like that's our whole thing, is to run pain free. So we don't worry. We don't think, oh, it's just magic. You stand in this running pose and your pain goes. So like, we know that. However, the more you keep putting yourself in that pose, in the right position, doing the right movement, you will get out of pain, and you'll prevent it from coming back. And then while you're doing all that, you still have to do all of the same exercises that you're doing probably right now in PT, that we give you the same ideas. You still have to do hip strength and hamstring strength. And do you know what I mean? Like, those things are important for your performance and for your ability to stay in line. So we know those are really important. And that's a big part of our thing. We're skill, strength, and self-care. However, I tell people, once you start to move correctly, we hear this all the time. They're like, oh my gosh, my shins don't hurt anymore. I'm like, you're right.
Yeah.
Because you're not slamming them into the ground. So just keep in mind that we understand both sides of it, but we want you to know you're not limited by these things you're getting in the analysis.
Absolutely. So guys, we hope you are subscribed to this channel if you aren't already. If you want to stay in touch with us, go to runrxquiz.com, and that will get you into our basically our email list, and we can keep in touch with you and let you know what's going on. Or you can just go to our website and join. It should be up at the top. It's just say join the wait list, and just stay on our email list so that we can keep in touch with you when we open up different activities. Like, we'll be opening up our 2024 clinic for next year. It's usually in the summertime, so you can start planning now. Doesn't matter where you come from. It's 2 days of fun, and we just had a blast. And we do have people come in from all over the world. So if you plan now, you can come and see us, and we will talk to you then. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us on the RunRX podcast. If you'd like to know more, join us at www.runrx.fit. And if you have additional questions that you'd like answered on the podcast, email us at support@runrx.fit.